September 28th of this year will mark the 3-year anniversary of Total War Warhammer 2's launch. Now that is slightly longer than we would have expected before hearing anything about Warhammer 3. We do know that this is a trilogy, and we will be getting an announcement, hopefully, about Total War Warhammer 3 sometime this year. But I want to explore something today. I want to explore the pre-order DLC that I've been really kind of ruminating on as I've explored a lot of the lore recently on the channel. I've been thinking about the pre-order DLC as it kind of matches up with Warhammer 1, right? We got the Warriors of Chaos. And I think if you actually got it, you got the Warriors of Chaos if you purchased Warhammer 1 in the first month of its launch. And then Warhammer 2 had Norsca attached to it. And I think that means Warhammer 3 is prime for another pre-order DLC as well. And hopefully, we'll hear an announcement of Warhammer 3 towards the end of this year. Party Elite recently did a video speculating about some of the timeline and expectations for Warhammer 3 on his channel, and I cannot encourage you enough to go check that video out. It's amazingly well done, and it brings up a lot of amazing points. But I really agree with his estimation that we're probably looking at a 2021 release schedule for Total War Warhammer 3. I would say early 2021. If Three Kingdoms came out May 23rd of 2019, I think that we would probably see Total War Warhammer 3 come out around that May timeline. But let's dive in now on the pre-order DLC that I think we will be getting with Total War Warhammer 3. Now, the argument could be made for another Chaos faction, right? You could just say, oh, it's going to be Chaos Demons, or it's going to be all of the Chaos Gods implanted into Warriors of Chaos. But let's take a look at some of the factors of Norsca. You have existing wireframes and models for a lot of the army already present from the Warriors of Chaos. And the presence of the army itself is already felt on the map from Warhammer 1, previously before Norsca was brought into it. You already had these generic Norsca factions throughout the northern regions of the map. In addition, you have features that are added to Norsca that kind of tease features that came with Total War Warhammer 2, as far as very unique campaign mechanics, a span or set of skills that really influence the campaign map as well as the battle map in ways that Warhammer 1 characters didn't, in my opinion. And you have an entirely new and unique set of units with, again, existing wireframes. When you take a look at trolls, which, again, are just simply color different chaos trolls, or when you even look at the werewolves, I believe that there's an existing wireframe for them as well. Now, what they do bring to the table, though, is a lot of unique abilities, like Frostbite, entirely new and unique to Norsca, which then expanded out from there. Also, we get a fresh campaign that bridges the gap from Warhammer 1 and 2. And when I say that, I mean that you get a generic antagonist for Warhammer 2 in the Norsca faction. So, by looking at some of these factors, my big guess, or my estimation, or my whatever the hell speculation, is that we'll get the Southern Realms for the pre-order DLC from Total War Warhammer 2 jumping into Total War Warhammer 3. And it fits a lot of the previously mentioned criteria, with a wide spanning presence in the Southern Realms. The Border Princes, Tilia, and Astalia, they all exist right now in the game. And if you take a look at the most recent DLC, The Shadow and the Blade, Pig Barter was added over to the Darklands portion of the Mortal Empires map. And that is a very large kind of mercenary center trading point in the Darklands. So that could have a presence of Kislev, but it could also have a very big presence of the Southern Realms existing as a neutral faction in the Darklands and Total War Warhammer 3. And it combines a lot of elements of all three games when you really take a look at the roster of the Southern Realms. It's like an all-star cast of units across the entire faction. So, I mean, this could really be the first teaser of ogres, because ogres are a mercenary bunch, and you could see them as present in Warhammer 2 through the Southern Realms. I mean, it might be that first sampling of horse-drawn cannons, or at least a variation of cannons that would fit into Kislev's army list. And it's really a great way to play around with units that are a bit wilder or a bit different, while also giving us a kind of nice Warhammer 2 send-off. So what we're going to do in this video today is, and this is going to be very brief, I don't have a huge, awesome presentation to show you guys. I'm really going to focus on why I think Southern Realms would make a good pre-order DLC faction, or why I think, like, my evidence based off of stuff already present in the game. And that's how I'm really going to end the video. I'm not going to go into that Southern Realms army list. I have a separate video planned for that, and I'll mention this video in that one. But that one's going to be a much larger, more grand video. This is just simply to kind of whet your palate, or at least kind of start that hype train going for a hopeful Southern Realms pre-order. And I know before even getting started, pre-order is an ugly word. I worked at a GameStop for way too many years to know that whenever time I hear the word pre-order, my skin crawls. But I know it is a reality of the gaming world, so let's not ignore it. So taking a look at some things already present in the campaign. So when we take a look at Norsca, the Wood Elves, and the Empire tech trees, each and every one of them show references to the Southern Realms as part of, again, their tech tree. And we see this in a lot of different portions, right? Like if we take a look at some of the pop-ups that we get when we're playing Total War Warhammer 1, we get hints or evidence of Skaven, you know, the triangular shape that appears when entire ghettos are all of a sudden completely drawn out. So it wouldn't be so crazy if there was already existing hints towards this coming. Now, another presence in some of the campaigns I want to mention are the intro cinematics, or at least the intro cutscenes that kind of bring you sweeping through the land to talk about your natural enemies and so on and so forth. If we look at the Fey Enchantress, her campaign intro explicitly mentions that Tilia and their mercenaries are pretty much sellswords, and you might as well deal with them before they have to deal with you. So at least they're referenced as some form of power worth attacking. Now, I guess that's that's a little bit of a low-hanging fruit, but it is worth at least mentioning that they are regarded as somewhat of a force in the land. In addition, when we take a look at the Tomb Kings and the Lizardmen intros, we don't see Empire units. We see those units that are very indicative of stuff that we saw from the Total War Warhammer 1 teaser trailers, which are the Morian helmets, the very, people look at them as like the Spanish conquistador style helmet that is in both the Tomb Kings and the Lizardmen intro cinematics. Now again, this could just simply be an artistic approach, because it wouldn't necessarily be Empire units that are spelunking through temple cities or going through the deep depths of a Tomb King's tomb. But again, I think it is worth mentioning that the artistic direction is already present. In addition to that, we already have screen caps from Total War Warhammer 1 of the Morian helmeted Empire troops fighting trolls. So at least we know that this is not just simply an artistic direction on a concept art, it's already been 3D rendered into the game. Diving further into some of these existing game clues, I want to take a look at the diplomacy screen. And when you look at the diplomacy screen, you typically see each and every, I guess, subtype or race of a series of factions, right? You see High Elves, then you see Lothern, Calidor, Illyrian, so on and so forth. You see vampires, then you see vampire counts, Sylvania, then you'll see von Karstein, you'll see Vampire Coast and all their factions, so on, so forth. Actually, Vampire Coast get their own delineation. But the Southern Realms have their own special category already, and special voiceover lines in diplomacy, just like we get with Kislev. So again, that's a little bit of a low-hanging fruit, and it is a little obvious. It gives that nod to this already having a presence in the game and just needing to have the necessary files or the necessary presence swapped out of it, right? Just like with the Norskins, they were already present. This is just replacing them. Same thing with Total War Warhammer 2's Norskins at the beginning of the game before Norsca was fully implemented into them. Once Norsca replaced all of the generic Marauder factions, we just had Norsca, where you have like scaling and so on and so forth. Now, moving towards the actual Southern Realms themselves, if you look at capturing Maragliano, which is of course housed in Tilia, it is a victory condition for various factions. Almost all of them, actually. It's not an objective for the Tomb Kings, Bretonnia, the Wood Elves, the Beastmen, the Warriors of Chaos, Ungrim's Karakadrin, and Nakai's Spirit of the Jungle. But everyone else has that as a victory condition in their Mortal Empires campaign. So it's worth noting that it's already kind of built into the victory conditions now for some portions of the existing factions of Total War Warhammer 2. And then when we take a look at building slots themselves, Maragliano has a ton, just like you would expect from a capital that is headed by a faction. If you even look over to Margrita, it has the Arclesiastium of Myrmidia and the Cult of Myrmidia building line. Now, we do have plenty of other generic sites that have unique buildings, but again, it's just kind of worth mentioning that these things are already somewhat present in the game. They have unique faction flags, they have unique buildings in these locations for Bretonnia and the Empire. So if you want to go look at the Ecclesiasticum of Myrmidia, you'd have to go take it with either Empire or Bretonnia. And it kind of already gives you that little bit of a teaser as to how this could be possibly embedded into the game. So in conclusion, is this irrefutable proof that the Southern Realms are coming? No, it's not. Not at all. In fact, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just pulled a fast one on us. But it is an army that had an entire army book in 5th edition, and it leaves a lot of things to really be explored in a very fun and creative way by Creative Assembly. There are so many different aspects of the Southern Realm, not from its generic mercenary army list, but from all of the additional dogs of war that you can place into it. Even taking a look simply at the fact that you can fill a lot of the roster's generic kind of quote-unquote state troops with current existing reskinned Empire soldiers really just kind of leads you down that same path that you get with Norsca. A lot of the base troops of Norsca are simply I guess you could say, skinned or categorized Norscan Marauders, or Chaos Marauders. At the same time, Chaos Marauders and Horsemasters are already present in the Warriors of Chaos list. So it just kind of shows you that this is very similar to that kind of style of pre-order race that I'm talking about. It's one that's already really heavily existing in a lot of different ways in other factions. And this is kind of snowballed for me as I've gone and really explored Cataph's Southern Realm mod. I thought to myself, man, this really actually could work in Total War Warhammer 2 before even Total War Warhammer 3 comes out. So I really encourage you guys to explore that mod, and I don't think that it's going to be exactly the way that Cataph did the mod, but I think that there's enough stuff in there to really get your brain kind of clicking on a possible presence of the Southern Realms by Creative Assembly before we jump into Warhammer 3. If you think about it, if you think about that timeline I was talking about. So if we're saying that May 23rd is the launch of Three Kingdoms, and when I'm of last year, and when I think that Warhammer 3 is going to come out next year, we're looking at a year plus 3 more months. Well, really a year and 3.5 months more or less. So if they put out another DLC for the next 3-4 months, one every 3 or 4 months, that would really still leave one last DLC, 2 last DLC slots to really kind of fit in the latter portion of the year, right? That's May 23rd. You got about 1 or 2 DLCs that you could probably fit in before then. And I think that it makes a lot of sense for our last DLC to be the pre-order DLC as we push into Warhammer 3. So hopefully this kind of sparks your interest here, guys. If there's any other big clues you'd like to talk about, I know there are some other campaign pop-ups that I missed that kind of give you that same nod that the Skaven do, like I said, about the oh man, here's the triangle-shaped edifice or as you could say, spray paint left on the walls of these empty ghettos, and then hinting at the Skaven. There's plenty of those throughout the campaigns of a lot of different factions, and unfortunately I did not gather all of the images for that. So if you want to talk about some of those, please let me know in the comments below. Any other big information or hints or tips or just kind of little Easter eggs that you've noticed, feel free to let me know. I'm sure everyone else would love to see some of those and go explore them for themselves. I think that's the fun portion of the kind of twilight of a game's cycle before the next one comes out. You kind of replay the last one and look for those little Easter eggs with those little hints or those little, oh man, it was right there underneath my nose the entire time. And I think that a lot, like I've done that for the whole Dark Souls series. As I play through 1, 2, and 3, you look at, you're playing through 3 and like, holy crap, that's a callback to 1. Or if you're in 1, you're like, holy shit, this is a direct reference to what happens in 3. So I'm always a really big fan of that kind of stuff. So if you see that stuff, like I said, let us know in the comments below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that action. But have a good one and take care.